Hey guys, it's Adam from Loose Pixel, and today I'm taking a look at the new BenQ PD2730S, part of BenQ's designer monitor lineup, retailing at $10.99 USD. This is a 27-inch 5K display aimed at creatives, illustrators, concept artists, photographers, etc. And I've been testing it specifically through the lens of a Photoshop-heavy workflow in illustration. I'll go through the specs, real-world use, pros and cons, and also compare it to the Apple Studio Display and Wacom Cintiq Pro 27, both products that cost over 2 to 3 times the price, depending. Starting with resolution and image quality. The headline feature here is the 5K resolution, 5120 by 2880 at 218 ppi. The refresh rate is capped at 60 Hz, which is perfectly fine for color correction and illustration. In practice, this gives you noticeably sharper text, cleaner line work, and smoother gradients compared to 4K, especially in Photoshop where you're zooming in and out constantly. It's important to mention as well that a common issue for Mac users is scaling. 5K matches the Apple Studio Display. This scales perfectly, where interface elements and text sizes are properly scaled, legible, and sharp. The contrast ratio is rated at 2000 to 1, which is higher than most IPS panels. Brightness sits at 400 nits, which is solid, but not exceptional. When held up against my brighter studio lights, the BenQ PD2730S barely held up against the Cintiq Pro 27 and Apple Studio Display, forcing me to keep the brightness maxed out at all times at 100%. Now regarding color and accuracy, this is where BenQ is clearly targeting professionals. You're getting 98% DCI-P3, 100% sRGB in Rec. 709. Delta E is less than 2 out of the box, which is fantastic and ensures excellent color accuracy. And importantly, it's factory calibrated and backed by BenQ's AQ color system. In real use, colors are consistent and predictable, which is what matters most for client work. I was very impressed by how the color accuracy is almost identical to the Cintiq Pro 27. This is probably due not only to the excellent calibration, but also to the panel type. Compared to the Apple Studio Display, however, I did notice a dip in contrast and saturation, but that's mostly due to Apple's proprietary panel technology. For professional work, I'm much more inclined to compare it to a Cintiq, since that is a dedicated pen display for artists with industry-leading calibration. Now regarding panel and viewing experience, the Nano Matte panel is an appreciated detail if bright lights and reflectivity in your studio space is an issue, although I wouldn't necessarily say that it's the reason to buy this panel. What you're gaining in reflection reduction, you're losing a little in brightness, so I kind of consider this a trade-off. Judging the BenQ on its own merits, I found that color uniformity was fantastic, corner to corner, which is very significant for an artist like myself, who wants to make sure that all values and colors are well represented. This ensures that whatever I'm drawing translates well to my audience. Next is the Hotkey Puck and ergonomics. The new wireless Hotkey Puck is a very appreciated upgrade. This allows you to access color modes, inputs, apps, and KVM switching without having to access the button menu on the display. Much more convenient. Having a dial right next to your pen display wirelessly is very handy, provided you aren't necessarily accessing menus and color modes regularly. That said, it is convenient, and less cables is always welcome. As an added little perk, since I'm somebody who takes his setup very seriously, both functionally and visually, I do appreciate the care to the materials and the aesthetics because it looks very nice sitting on your desk. Moving on to the included stand, it's a nice, solid metal silver base and offers all the height, pivot, and tilt adjustments you'd need, including the ability to rotate it to portrait mode, which can be very handy depending on your setup. Note that the adjustments include a 90-degree pivot, one directional, a swivel of 30 degrees, bidirectional, tilt at -5 to 20 degrees, and a 150 millimeter height adjustment. Inside the box, you'll also find a small plastic cable holder, which I find minimally useful. Although it's very easy to get the cables into it, they aren't very well secured and can pop out fairly easily. If you're a stickler for a clean setup, I don't necessarily feel that this is the best solution because the cables, depending on their length, will easily stick out behind the stand, which is why I generally opt for an Ergo Arm, both for versatility and just to make things look cleaner overall. That moves us on to the Ergo Arm. With that said, the BenQ Ergo Arm is clean and functional. On its own merit, I can attest to the fact that the BenQ Ergo Arm is aesthetic, functional, beautifully built, and will really help to make a setup look much cleaner and tidier. That said, I know from personal experience, having purchased many of these Ergo Arms over the years, you are paying a premium for the BenQ name because there are almost identical looking and functioning Ergo Arms that come at a fraction of the cost. In fact, if it wasn't for the BenQ logo, you might struggle to distinguish them. While we're on the subject of add-ons, I also got a chance to test out the Screenbar Halo 2. TLDR, I'm very pleased with this new upgrade from the Halo 1. To mention the similarities first, they are both the same width and both feature dual front and back lighting, and they both feature a wireless controller. However, the new Halo 2 includes a much wider backlight coverage, about 423% wider. This new controller now includes a digital display with much finer tuned controls of temperature and brightness. One of my original critiques of the original wireless controller was that it was very hard to read, and that, on a controller itself, might seem counterintuitive since it's the controller for a light source. A new and very appreciated feature of the Screenbar Halo 2 is motion detection and auto shutoff. I was very pleasantly surprised when I went to check my emails late at night and the lights were off and the screenbar automatically turned on when I sat down at my desk. It also has saved me the trouble of having to manually shut off the lights at night when I'm closing up. Another notable feature is that the arm of the Screenbar Halo 2 is significantly longer than the original, allowing you to get better desk coverage while simultaneously reducing the light reflections on your screen. Overall, I consider this to be a very valuable upgrade to the original Screenbar Halo, and it's clear that BenQ listened closely to their customers and made all the relevant changes. So to recap, here are my pros and cons. First, the pros. True 5K resolution at 218 ppi. Excellent color accuracy, scaling, and consistency. High quality anti-glare nano matte panel. Useful software plus wireless Hotkey Puck. Thunderbolt 4 plus daisy chaining. Excellent price for specs and features with some notable trade-offs. Cons. 400 nits. Brightness is just good, but not great. No mini LED or HDR beyond HDR 400. And the built-in speaker's webcam are no to focus here. Not a big deal, wasn't expecting it to be. So, my final verdict and recommendations. If you're a digital artist working primarily in Photoshop, this is a very strong, purpose-built monitor. Compared to the Apple Studio Display, you're losing out on brightness, contrast, and overall desk solution functionality like speakers and webcam, etc. But you gain excellent and accessible color modes and accuracy, especially when paired with a factory calibrated pen display like the Cintiq. Compared to the Cintiq Pro 27, you're losing brightness and the 120 Hz. As for color accuracy, it's practically identical to my eyes between the Cintiq and the BenQ. If you want a color accurate, high resolution workspace monitor, this absolutely does make sense. When reviewed from a quote professional perspective, this is a fantastic budget option compared to other designer monitors. Remember, these are professional prices we're talking about. It should definitely be one of your top contenders on a budget. With that said, hopefully you enjoyed my first look and review of the BenQ PD2730S. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, happy shopping. Take care.